You're listening to the Arcbenders Podcast, a show created to challenge you to be bold enough to live an extraordinary life with impact. I'm here with Elisa Hurt.
And that's Christina Noel. Now sit back, find your happy place, and get inspired.
P.S. This episode contains a bit of salty language.
All right, Christina, let's just talk about burnout. Let's just get real.
Yeah. Instead of welcome to the show, it's like, ugh. We're not doing that today. There's no pretense of cheer.
I was just like driving home today thinking about how we should do the show. And I was like, oh, right now is just so hard. And you and I have some really good real talks. And I was like, oh, me and Christina having a real talk on a podcast was sort of, it's like a big vulnerability moment. But I think it's really powerful to have people hear your vulnerability moments too.
I think so too. When I think it's so timely that our episode that really does discuss burnout is right now when we both are definitely getting to this place where we're pretty run down. And I mean, burnout happens to normal people. I think sometimes it's inevitable if you have big dreams and big ideas. But when it becomes a pattern, which in my case, I sometimes struggle with it becoming a pattern, then you have to recognize what are the things that are actually causing it. And in my case, it is essentially that I need to say no more. I literally need to put in boundaries. And yet in social impact, there's this assumption that because I exist to change the world and my work exists to make the world better, I'm going to say yes to everything and I want to help everybody. And yet that is not sustainable. That is not okay. It's tricky because, well, okay, actually, just deep down, I'm a people pleaser. And that's something I've worked on. I'm a recovering people pleaser. And I want to make people happy. And I want to bring joy. And I want to make the world a better place. But I know I have to be strategic. And yet I also don't want to offend people. And so, for example, my latest life hack has been Calendly. I have the Calendly app for all these different types of meetings. And now my new policy is if you are a stranger, you are getting 30 minutes.
On the phone.
On the phone.
Yeah.
On the phone. Unless there's a compelling reason, like we clearly do the same work and there needs to be like a thought leadership share of knowledge. Otherwise, you're going to get like a screening call.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But yet I feel really bad. Like I did that once and it didn't go well. Like I think she was kind of like, oh. And I think it was actually seen as a bad thing. And I mean, and that's on that person. But I get the impression of people are like, well, who do you think you are that you're so important? You're only giving me 30 minutes of your time. And I'm like, I'm someone who's trying to make the world a better place. And I'm doing a lot of things. And I need to be strategic and I need to focus. And everything I do that's a distraction is a distraction.
Something that I've told my kids recently is like, you're the most important person in your own life. And you have to love yourself. And you also have to be with yourself all the time. Like you're never alone because you're always with yourself. And sometimes I think that we end up, because we're with ourselves all the time, you just get annoyed with yourself sometimes, you know? And then you're not nice to yourself. But really when it comes down to it, like one of the best ways that we can be kind to ourselves is by respecting our personal time. And like, I know hashtag self-care is such a big thing. It's probably big right now just because of its being a trend and a hashtag. But I mean, it's also something that is timeless and important. When you have a mission, a personal mission that's bigger than yourself and you want to make an impact in the world and you want to make other people happy, you often end up sacrificing yourself. And like, that doesn't really help anyone. I would say that it's more commonly talked about in the business world that in order to have a business that has impact, you have to have a sustainable business. Like you have to take care of your business before you can take care of others. But I don't think that we talk about that as people like we should. In order to make an impact in the world, in order to help other people, you have to help yourself first. But then that makes us feel selfish. And then it's like, oh, well, you're not a good person because you're selfish. And it's like, no, the fact that you make sacrifices in other ways, but in the ways that you have to take care of yourself first, and the way that you prioritize yourself is the way that you're allow yourself to make sacrifices in other ways that impact the world. And here I am, I'm like saying this, and like I'm having like I feel like I'm having a panic attack right now just thinking about how bad I am at this myself. But it's like, it's the kind of thing that's just really, really, really hard to like actually live, because there's this expectation and this pressure that we have. And I do think that that there is a little bit of a gender component here, because women are expected to be nurturers, and, you know, historically even, like, women are the caregivers. And so women are expected to sacrifice themselves to help others. Even though our society is changing and gender equality is becoming more of a thing, I'm in a relationship where, hell, I'm the one that does less. And that's a problem. I mean, gender equity wise, like, my husband and I are on pretty equal footing when it comes to like the caretaking and all of that, but we both get burned out. And I know, Christina, I know that you're in a relationship too, where like it's not like you're expected to be the one that takes care of everything at home, and then your husband like goes and makes the money and brings it home. You have a very equitable relationship as well, but still, as women, we have pressure on us.
We do. Yeah. It's not our spouses that are putting this pressure. It's interesting. My husband, Jason, is the best.
No, my husband's actually the best.
No, mine is.
No.
JK, there's a space for them both to be the best. He's the best husband in my life. He's also the only one. Granted, when we were dating, I like made sure I set expectations about who I am and what I stand for and my dreams and goals, and the fact that having a career is really important to me, and that I want a family, and that's important to me too. And yet, if I'm going to be a parent that I'm really proud of one day, it means that I also want to have hopes and dreams and do great things as well. And I don't want to just sacrifice my entire life for my kids. And the only way that you can do that is if you have a partner who's truly a partner. And that means that sometimes things are going to be unequal. I mean, there were definitely times in a relationship he did more chores. And here's the thing, like when it comes to burnout, I love one of our mentors. We gave her a shout out last episode too, but Maria Kangaree we were talking with her about performance, and you can work at 120%. I mean, you can, like, and sometimes you will, and you should. But you can't do that forever. And that there's a reason that Google has an 80%, 20% free time policy. And it's because like we operate better when we have space to breathe. And so this whole burnout thing isn't even just about happiness or selfishness. It's also about how do you reach your ultimate potential? Like, how do you be a high performer? And like for me, I know that the one thing I'm still working on is boundaries, and getting to a place where I'm okay putting those boundaries in. And if someone doesn't like it, then that's on them, not on me. And I'm actually doing them a disservice when I give my time away when I don't want to, because I get angry and frustrated, and then I kick myself because I'm like, my intuition told me that this was going to be a huge waste of time, and this is going to be someone just selling me something that I'm not interested in. And yet, sometimes I'll still go to the meeting, even though I know better, because I don't want to upset a friend, or I don't want to be impolite to a stranger. And then we have this culture of networking too. Like as entrepreneurs, there's almost this expectation you should be networking, you should be connecting with people, and you should be getting out there. And yet, like right now in my business, no, I need to be strategic. Like I need to leave the house as little as possible and just do work. Like work on this podcast, work on my consulting firm, like work with Unity, and anything that's diverting from that distracts me. And once you get distracted, then you come back and you're not as focused. It's just a systemic issue.
Yeah.
You've got to put your blinders on. Like that is my goal in life right now, is to put my blinders on.
Part of me wonders so like traditionally entrepreneurs, I think it was in the Two Bobs podcast, they were talking about this, where like traditionally entrepreneurs would be in your early 20s. And then like if you're if you're past 30, you're like too old for it. And I wonder if it's because of that. We've settled into our lives. We're like squishy and comfy and we're good. Even though I started a business in my 30s, and even though I have a family and 2 kids and a husband and all of this like life around me, I want to do all of those things. But if I was in my early 20s, I might just have the business. And then, so like, I wonder if our age factors into the burnout that we're experiencing, where it's like, there's more than just the business that we're trying to do. And granted, I'm not trying to create a fast growth business. It is a lifestyle business because I don't want to sell it, but I also want to have a comfortable lifestyle. I want to have like a good lifestyle. And so I'm not trying to grow it fast. I'm trying to grow it healthily. But that doesn't mean just because I'm trying to do it in a sane way, it's still an insane thing. Starting a business is an insane thing to do. It's really hard to do.
Well, and that's why I am so excited for you guys to hear the interview with our guest today, Fagan Harris. He's the CEO of Baltimore Corps and the founder. Well, the interesting thing is, and he founded it, he was starting to run the organization when he was 26. So, I mean, he did the thing in his 20s, and he still got burned out.
Oh, yeah.
Because I think, because I mean, I do think that this life phase is trickier, because I don't have a family yet, but we're trying to. And so that's at the forefront of my mind. And I think some of that also is probably contributing to the burnout, because I feel the sense of urgency to want to get as far as I can before we have a baby. So things are in place, that there's like a solid foundation that I can then grow from. But I feel like, I'm guessing it's probably like how I freaked out when I was turning 30. I remember like having this minor panic for like a month about all the things I hadn't done before I turned 30. And then I turned 30 and I realized, guess what? You can still live your life. You can still live all of your dreams. It was not too late.
No.
It's a milestone. And I think having a baby is the same thing for me. But yet I'm so hungry. Like, I know that there's this impact. I know I can change the world. And real talk, I want my business to work. I joke about that with Fagan, where I talked about, I mean, guilt, it's not even just burnout, it's guilt. And so one of the things we talk about in our interview is the fact that I felt guilty about funding. So in Fagan's case, I mean, he took on risk capital to start a freaking nonprofit that is like one of the most amazing and impactful organizations I have ever seen. And he's incredible. Like, everything about Fagan is amazing. He's an amazing person. You'll hear his story, and it's so compelling, and it's so smart how he went from trying to start the orbits of social impact jobs to then coming up with a regional solution. It's unbelievable. And yet he cared so much about mission, and he cared so much about his community. He went out and took loans that like cost him financially. And so like, it's not even just burnout of your time. It's also burnout on like, what does success look like to me, and how much of like, should I be giving? I mean, right now my business is like, real talk, it's not profitable. I'm breaking even. And at the end of the year, I was negative about negative 3,000. And people don't understand the stress with that. And I think with Fagan, I mean, he made like a meager salary for all of these years where he worked around the clock towards something that he was so passionate about. And yet, I mean, that takes a freaking toll. And so when I quit my job, I was burned out. And now as an entrepreneur, I go through periods where I'm burned out. And we have to start talking about what this is. And it can't just be a hashtag self-care. It has to be a looking at the root cause and stopping the patterns.
Right.
And like really analyzing our lives and realizing what's sustainable. And I mean, I was laying in bed with my husband and I'm like, I don't know what to do. And he's like, what you have to do is you have to do less. And so for me, it meant saying no to a bunch of things. And for me, continuously, it's going to mean me saying no to even more things. And every no still hurts. Like, I feel guilty every time I send a no. And yet every time after I send an email, I'm like, oh, thank God I said no. I'm always so relieved.
Yeah.
But at the time, it just hurts. It's hard. Like, I hate it.
I know exactly what you mean.
And also to everyone that's trying to be an arc bender, no is a gift. And it's a gift to yourself and it's a gift to the person that you're saying to, because if you're saying yes to anything, it should be because it's something you feel really passionate about. And it's because it's a decision that you feel good to. And you're not doing anyone a service if you're saying yes to things that you don't want to do, because you're going to get resentful. Mm-hmm. And resentment isn't good for anyone. And also, like, more deeply, this goes back to, like, their career as an arc bender. What advice that Fagan gives on this podcast changed my life. I think of any arc bender interview I have had thus far. I mean, that's over 50 interviews with people who've changed the world. Fagan hit upon something that I think is very deep and very meaningful and profound, and I think the most important lesson if you want to change the world. And that is, the only way to make this work is to really understand what you're setting out to do and how you want to do it. What is that role? Like, what is the type of work you want to do? Because if you're not doing the work that you want to do in the way that you want to do it, you're going to get burned out. Like, just inherently doing work you don't like doing is going to burn you out. And I don't think enough people talk about that. I think there's, yet again, it's like the Mother Teresa complex, that you should give and give and give, and that should be enough. And I just don't believe that's true. I think that if people do the work that they are best at, that's really powerful.
Yeah, I agree. You know, I'm actually kind of curious, Christina, because it's the kind of advice that, you know, I actually do hear that a lot. Do what you are good at and what you like doing. But what is it about how Fagan said it? Like, why did it resonate so much with you when you heard him say it?
I think that is a great question, because I have heard it before, but there was something about this interview that was so real. And I love that advice was coming from a place and coming from a person whose reaction to social impact was, when people are like, oh, I want to do social impact, or I want to do social entrepreneurship, his first reaction is, don't do it. And honestly, right now, I feel that way with people who are like, I want to start a podcast. And my immediate reaction is, don't do it. And I think that goes to anything that's a lot of work. And if you're going to do something that takes a lot of work, and if you're going to do something that takes a lot of energy and resources and passion and time and commitment, you need to be very careful that it's playing to your strengths. And like in the case of the podcast, I mean, we're still honing our process, but I love this part. I love talking to you, but I don't always love some of the editing parts.
Yeah.
and it's just a lot of time. It's just a lot of time to do it right, to come up with the show notes, to be thoughtful, and to do you all a service in telling these stories in a way that's compelling. And so I have to be really careful to try to minimize the stuff I hate doing.
Yeah. Well,
because I'm going to get burned out.
Yeah. And I don't mind the editing. What I hate doing is the promotion.
Which I do all the promotion. And I don't mind that as much.
And it's funny because I haven't even put anything about the last episode up on my own social media. But I also hate social media. So there you go.
And that's why having a team is a good idea.
Yeah, it is. Seriously. Because, and it goes back to that elevate and delegate thing where it's if you're doing what you love and things that you're good at, then things are going to be much better in your life. And so the idea of somebody being well, I want to do what you did because look how successful you are. And it's okay, well, I did this thing that I love and I'm good at, and that's why it's successful. But if it's something that you just see the success and you want the success and you're not passionate about the what and the why, then you're not going to get there because you're going to, like you said, you're going to burn out faster because you're going to hate it, And so even though this stuff's hard, even though you and I both have these oh my God, I'm going to just hide under my bed covers and cry and not get up. Even though we do that, we still love what we're doing. And the only reason we're still doing it is because we actually love it.
Yeah.
And I don't love the burnout part. I don't love the feeling crappy part. But I do, when I'm doing the part of the job that I love, I really, really love it.
Yes. I will say I did have a stroke of genius, and it's not going to happen immediately. I do think I am going to start trying like 90-day things.
Ooh.
So like I'm going to make a perfect influencer level Instagram for 90 days.
Why?
And just see, like, does it actually, like, I want to understand scrappy marketing. Like, I want to understand, like, you know, all these influencers are like, I blew up my Instagram. Here's how you can do it. And you should do it. But my question is, like, where's reality? Like, when you're one person who has a goal for your business, like, are there tactics that are actually working for you if you don't have a big budget?
Right.
And so my question is, like, on Instagram, if I have beautiful photos with pretty quotes that look like beautifully planned out, will that actually grow my influence? Like, is that actually a powerful use of time? Or is it not? You know, like, is that a waste? And I mean, even if I do it, you know, I'll get real on videos. Like, I'm all about stories and being honest, but.
Oh, I can't wait. I can't wait because you know what? I'm actually really curious about that too. But I think that you're going to have an outlet. And here we are talking about burnout and you're going to try something for 90 days. I'm sitting here going, Christina, are you really going to be able to do that? Like, how are you going to have like this perfect veneer of perfection?
I'm going to do it. I'm going to plan it. Oh, so I'm going to take probably 6 months to plan it.
Oh, okay.
So what I decided, so a lot of where I'm coming to with what I need to do to avoid burnout is to actually give myself the project timeline I need. When I slow down, so when I work smarter, not harder, and when I take the time to be really intentional and like still enjoy the little moments, then all of my work is wonderful. Because like the actual work I'm doing now in my life is fantastic. Like I'm not a victim. I absolutely love what I'm doing. It's just one thing that I've realized is that too much of a good thing is still too much.
Yeah.
And so because I have complete control, there have been a lot of things that I've done that have been really lovely in the start that I just don't have time for right now. And I think that having space to be creative and having space to think and having time to not just be bombarded by to-do list, is really, really important. One of the things that I also love that comes up in this interview is just how nobody truly has it figured out.
What do you mean, Christina? What do you mean by that?
Well, I'm just so tired of people acting like they have everything figured out.
Yeah.
And they have this system that works because it worked for them. And it's just BS. Just like the burnout thing. Like I'm tired in social impact of everything being about the resume and everything being about perfection and everything looking so good on paper. And then yet there's all this ugly stuff behind the scenes. There's either someone who's completely burned out, you have employees that aren't paid well, you have a business that's not profitable, but it looks so great. It's helping lives. Yeah, and it's not sustainable.
Yeah. Well, you know what it makes me think of is the life-changing magic of tidying up. It's like, okay, both Marie Kondo and all of these Instagram influencers, like they make life look so perfect. And all the people, I started watching the show on Netflix about the KonMari method. And it's the same thing with like every other kind of HGTV sort of show where it's like these shows about like house renovations and makeovers and all of that. And it's like, yeah, I bet it's really great for the first month, but like, it's not that lifestyle of keeping your home a certain way. If that's not your normal, then you're not going to enjoy it forever. You know, like you can't force change.
Shout out to this other podcast that I love. I highly recommend By the Book.
Yes.
So it's two women. It's part podcast, part reality TV show. I freaking love them. And they do the Marie Kondo's The Magic of Tidying Up book. And it's hilarious. Let me just say, just listen to it. And at the end, spoiler alert, they don't recommend it. Not because the methodology, I'm just big on you need to like pick and choose what works for you. And like maybe the way she organizes her drawers might be a system that is helpful. But if you adopt most of these self-help systems, they drive you crazy. Like you have to take advice for what it is. It's advice and maybe it works for someone else, but it might not work for you.
Right. Like, I think I'm kind of excited about going through my junk and using that method to, like, get rid of stuff. But I don't need to use that method for storing all my clothes or putting my soap in the cupboard. Like, what? That was actually, I loved that. I loved that part of the By the Book podcast. It's so funny.
Oh, you finally listened to it.
I did. It was great. Well, I have like soap in the cupboard, so now my cupboard's dirty because I had to touch it to like get the soap out. Now I have to wash the cupboard.
Hilarious. But Elisa, I also love what you said, because I think that applies to entrepreneurship, and that's one thing we're talking a lot about in the accelerator program that I'm working on. And that is, the way one person was successful is not the way someone else is going to be successful. And so I think that each person's path is super unique. And I mean, you can study tactics, but I love this idea that you should really, truly play to your strengths.
Fagan Harris is the president and CEO of Baltimore Corps, an organization that enlists talented people in public service and social entrepreneurship in Baltimore City. Fagan co-founded the organization with Wes Moore in 2013 because he believes deeply in every individual's right to opportunity and is committed to realizing a more just and equitable society. Growing up, Fagan overcame a culture of low expectations, which pervaded his working class community. As he puts it, I grew up in Baltimore and lived the reality of post-industrial America. I was educated in public schools that barely graduated half of its students and watched close family members battle addiction and gang life. I lost friends to those forces. Caring individuals pushed me to reach higher, which led me to Stanford University. Fagan is a graduate of Stanford University and the University of Oxford, where he was a Rhodes Scholar. He has received numerous awards, including fellowships from Ashoka, Echoing Green, and the Aspen Institute. But despite all these experiences and qualifications, it was the 6 months it took him to land a job in the nonprofit sector, and his return to his native Baltimore, that finally spurred him to focus on reimagining the social impact sector's talent pipeline.
I want to know all about Baltimore Corps. Like, what is your journey? Like, how did you get here? What inspired you to do this?
So back in 2011, me and two colleagues started a business planning kind of venture around careers in public service, social sector careers, social good. And we wanted to figure out, how do you build a really effective marketplace for these kinds of jobs, and how do you support kind of the millennial generation going into them? What does that really look like?
Yeah.
So really kind of, I would say at the beginning of like the purpose-driven thing, but at kind of the start of this latest iteration, I would say,
Sure.
like coming out of the Great Recession, and I think a lot of people were thinking, like, what's next and where do we go? And so we did that from 2011 to 2013, and what I kind of concluded in that was that our orientation around a national solution was not going to work. Like, labor markets are too complicated and they're too regional to effectively run. Like, the holy grail is like the orbits for social impact jobs. And like everyone in the country can just like go find what makes sense for them, and they can like select into that, but it's too vast, it's too nuanced. And so I settled on a place-based model and thought, you know what, if you go hyper-local, you actually could pull this out at a local scale and get it done. And so I'm from this area, and also saw where Baltimore had just all the right ingredients for positioning itself as like a destination for social change.
Absolutely.
And so with that kind of background, after 2 years of business planning and research, and we published a bunch and wrote a lot, launched Baltimore Corps in 2013. And then that's been like a real kind of journey, I think, because we basically started out running like a fellowship program. I would say today the bulk of our revenues are earned income. We also run like a search and executive search business.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
So we've had to like evolve on the sustainability question and how to get out of just solely looking for grant dollars and philanthropic dollars, but also like figuring out like what's our product? What are we selling? Turns out there's a ton of demand for what we do. So how do we make sure that we like meet that demand responsibly and still align it with our mission, but meet the demand and earn the revenue and grow the business. So
What kind of companies are you working with on the executive search?
oh man, it runs the gamut. We run with social sector companies in the nonprofit sector, so we just did the search for like Roca. I don't know if you've heard about the Roca thing coming in from Boston. So Roca is like a big kind of crime prevention thing. The mayor recruited down from Boston, so we did that search for the Innovation Center at Loyola University, so higher ed.
Cool.
Yeah, we're doing something with T. Rowe Price, Brown Advisory. So I mean, private, public, social, higher ed, hospitals.
Cool.
Yeah.
How was the fellowship program at first?
It was super small. I mean, it was 10 fellows at first. I mean, we didn't have a staff. We didn't really know what we were doing. So that first group, they were just troopers and helped us really define, like, what is the experience for the people who are coming through our programs and like, what are we trying to do. I think what we learned in that is, like, I was on the phone with, like, the head of human capital at Deloitte, and I was trying to, like, understand how they settled on their, like, talent development model.
Yeah.
And he was like, well, you know, it's about the 5 C's. And, you know, he like rattled off, it was, you know, it's clarity and it's consistency. And then I just like, it dawned on me and I was like, wait, did you guys just like make up the 5 C's? He was like, well, yeah, all this is like internal marketing. So like, no one really knows how to develop people. And that's when I realized like, no one really knows how to develop people. So like, let's just do the best we can. Let's listen to our like customers and build something that they would want. But I really thought that there was actually like best practice out there. Everyone does it wildly different. So once I heard the 5 C's at Deloitte, then I realized like, all right, like we need to take it seriously, but let me not put this pressure on myself to go find like the magic answer.
Because there isn't one.
There is no one.
And then every single person's different, and then every organization's different.
Yeah. Yeah, no magic answer.
Okay, so you went through the fellowship program, but I'm guessing that wasn't like highly revenue generating. It's like, how did that transition happen? Was it like naturally, like some executive search opportunities came to you?
We basically started doing the fellowship and then we quickly became oversubscribed. So like we would do a call for like 30 fellows and get like 800 applications.
Oh.
You know, and then like we'd reach out to our employers and get like 120 employer applications. So it was clear that there was like a really strong marketplace.
Sure.
But the fellowship infrastructure was not tooled to scale to meet that. Like at best, it was always going to be 50 people a year, which is still a humongous fellowship, but still a drop in the bucket compared to what people wanted and what they were demanding. So
that is fascinating.
yeah, so then we're just like, all right, well, we got the 30 or 50 people here, but we're saying no to like 950 a cycle. How good are those people? And we found out about 20% are just as good as the people getting into the fellowship. We saw that we were probably not matching off with 60% of the businesses in our queue. So then it was like, all right, let's just build a business line around the excess demand here.
Nice.
And then you differentiate your search product, right? So like the fellowship is like early to mid-career. So we then decisively went into like mid to executive level stuff because the margins on that are better.
Sure. That makes so much sense. And well, I love that I'm talking to you because you're the first person who's like articulated this like hypothesis or like my like, I don't know, I don't think there's numbers to my experience, but I feel like I meet someone every week that's like, I love social impact. I want purpose in my life.
Yeah.
What do I do?
Yeah.
And I'm one of the people from my MBA program that pulled it off. But then the problem is I'm like, yes, like don't give up. But FYI, there aren't many jobs yet, A, and then B, you're probably gonna have to go create it.
Yeah.
And C, now that I'm creating it, it's a shit show.
Yes, all of that is true.
Yeah.
All of that is true. I think the fellowship, first and foremost, is a mechanism for creating those opportunities. And, like that was the other thing. We did an analysis on like the quality of the opportunities, and we realized that I'd say 80% of the fellowship slots were not filling existing roles. They were creating new roles.
Wow.
And so like it became this great vehicle for attracting like third-party capital to underwrite creative stuff, and like organizations kind of saw it as like, look, we can take a chance and recruit a person into this and try something on a trial basis. And so like And we didn't really even intend all of that. I mean, it kind of, the market took it in a direction that like surprised all of us. But once it got going, it was like, all right, that is a great program. That is a great product.
That's awesome.
But we're definitely not like tapping into the full potential of the search business. Like there's just a lot of existing roles that like we need to be filling, and like we have the talent pool to do that. So they're more differentiated than they would look like on their surface, I guess is what I'm saying.
That makes so much sense. So the search business started, just to confirm, from all of these applicants that you got in, and you're like, oh wait, I have this pool of massive talent.
Yeah, we're leaving so much value on the table.
Right. That is so cool. So what are the biggest obstacles that you've experienced?
Talent, ironically, given that we're in the talent business. I think getting the talent right inside the organization has been really tough. I think my own growth and evolution has been hard. I was 26 when we founded the company.
Wow.
So, and it turns out like being insightful on a problem, which I think I was, doesn't mean that you have like the administrative or managerial chops to then like run like a meaningfully sized business. And so, that was and remains like a huge learning curve.
Yeah. Learning on the job.
On the job training. And then cash flow and finance, massive issue. Because I would say 60% of our revenue stack is earned income, and that's all where we do business with the city and then get reimbursed. And so we don't get paid. If we're really on it, 100 days out from having done it, realistically, it's more like 6 to 9 months. And so you're financing like at no cost millions of dollars for the city of Baltimore. And so the pressure that puts on your balance sheet is like immense. And so we've had to like self-insure that, and self-finance that, and that's created an enormous amount of difficulty. So, but we're getting close to getting like a $500,000 line of credit, like all the things. But it's amazing how like a lot of banks, I mean, it's taken us years to talk to banks and figure this out, but they're just like, we don't deal with models like this often. You're a business, but you're not a business, and they're just like, we don't understand it. And so that's like held up getting the financing that like any other small business with $5 million annual revenue, like banks would be tripping over themselves to like lend and bring you in as a customer. But because we're in like the social good space, they're like, well, we don't understand it, so good luck. And you're like, but I have 50 executable contracts with the city, like we're doing really good work here. So I would say those in that order.
Are you for-profit or non-profit structure?
We're incorporated as a non-profit, although I wonder if we should have incorporated as a for-profit. I didn't anticipate that we would do this much on the earned income side.
Yeah, but I think that's fascinating to meet someone on the nonprofit side that is really, truly approaching it as
we have
so much earned income. Like, I think that there's so much more of that needed in the nonprofit sector.
We need more supports around it.
Sure, because because you're a nonprofit, you're not getting the line of credit you need, even though you're operating as a business.
Yeah, it's like I was complaining about it to someone. I was like, all I hear from foundations is how we need more earned income in the sector, and then we go and do it, and then no one knows what to do with it. And I'm like, this is kind of bullshit. So, which one is it, guys? Are we doing this or are we not? Because if we're not, then I'll go raise money from foundations and just work a lot less hard. So like, what's the deal? So.
Yeah. Or I mean, have you thought of a like in between? I mean, that's like a big deal to be incorporated as a nonprofit.
Well, I think what we're going to do is incorporate a for-profit arm to take all that earned income, just because like the financing will be super simple, and then we can even raise like equity in addition to debt if we wanted to. Like we could do the options available to you go up. So
I like that. That makes sense.
And have it owned by the nonprofit corporation so that you keep the returns there. But,
right. Yeah. That sounds cool. Okay, so moving on. Burnout is real.
Burnout's super real.
And I'd love to learn, like, how do you manage it? Or not manage it? Like, what lessons have you learned along the way? And, like, knowing that in the social good sector, there's so much hard work and there's so much tendency towards burnout. Like, how do you personally deal with it and try to avoid it?
It's a good question. I don't know that I've done a good job. I know that I've not done a good job. I don't know. I don't know where to start on this question. I think it's. I'm very troubled by like the sector and the space with relation to this. I think it's a big issue. I think like if you work really hard in a for-profit context, building a company, I think if you were to get to the point where we get, then like I would be a millionaire.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
6 years in with these kind of revenues, like not like unicorn, not Uber, not
Sure,
Facebook, but
sure.
like I'd be considered a very successful small business owner, and I would be independently wealthy.
Yeah.
I get to this side of it, I just have the gratification of knowing that we did a really good job. But like,
Yeah.
I don't get, there's no like reward for like the health things you take along the way, the financial hit. You know, I probably made $25,000 to $30,000 for like 3 or 4 consecutive years.
Right.
Like,
Have you ever gotten an ROI on, or like at least like
I never will. I never will.
Yeah.
It will literally never happen. And I'm doing fine now. My board is like all over it and takes good care of me, but like
Yeah.
that's a very recent development. And that's not a knock on them. It just took us a long time
Right.
to get to the point where we could afford to pay executives like a semi-competitive like rate marketplace. It's just tough.
Yeah.
So like I don't know. I meet a lot of people all the time who are like, I want to go start like social enterprise, and they're like, I want to do what you've done, and I'm like, oh my god, don't do it. Like, run for the fucking hills. Like, do not do it. It's gonna like kick your ass. Like it's gonna like you're gonna like cry and wish you never did this. Like you're gonna have a lot more debt. You're gonna put on weight. You're not gonna sleep. Your beard's gonna be super gray under here. You know, like just don't do it. But that's not, you don't tell people that because we need people doing hard things and building stuff. So
yeah, because we really do need people changing the world.
We really. I know it's rich coming from me, right? Like my whole gig is like recruiting people to do this, but like it's been super eye-opening. It's punishing. It's punishing work. I think people underestimate. It's like 3 concentric circles that kind of overlap. Like the personal financial sacrifice, the kind of personal sacrifice around like your health, and then like just the grind of doing mission driven work, right?
Yes.
It's like
the emotional toll.
Right. You know, these other 2 were like solved for. You're still going to work every day being like, how do we get more people in the Baltimore Police Department? Like, as a black person in this city, like that is a complicated question to like reflect on. Be like, well, do I even want to do that? Well, I guess we should and have to, but like it's complicated, you know?
Yes.
It's super hard, and like you wonder a lot, and so you take a lot of psychic kind of dings as well. So anyway, that's all the bad stuff.
Yeah.
In terms of how you deal with it, I don't know. I wish I had not compromised on sleep. I wish I had not done stuff financially.
Yeah.
Because I didn't know how like risk capital worked in this space. So like I went out like any other person, like went to a bank and got a loan. You know? And that's because like pathways to risk capital are super poorly defined,
Right.
And, like super scarce, and like unless you're an Equin Green fellow or like kind of hit the lottery.
Or you can be like me and finance a road trip on Indiegogo and feel like an asshole the whole time. But I felt like an asshole the whole time.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Which is not right, because it's also
I know.
like, what's your alternative?
I know.
Right?
I know. Because I mean,
Should you follow me to Wells Fargo and go get a loan too? Like, no, hell no. Like, that's not a good idea.
and I'm still in the red. Don't worry, people. I'm still in the red.
Still losing money.
I'm still. But someone has to tell these stories.
Yeah.
Same thing.
Yeah.
Like someone needs to start talking about this. And in the social impact space, it's like the Mother Teresa complex.
Right.
Like you should give and give and give, and like, can there be a happy medium? Like, I mean, personally, like, have you thought about like go make your for-profit arm and like give yourself a stake in that? Like, you've earned it.
Totally.
You know.
And that I definitely think I love being an entrepreneur. The next thing I do is absolutely going to be for profit.
Yeah.
I don't think I will ever do a nonprofit again. I
Yeah.
think this is like I've seen too much.
Yeah. Well, I mean, as you grow up, nonprofits are fascinating. I think it's really interesting. You're actually one that did the earned income model, but I was at a conference. It was a Boys and Girls Club conference, and this, I think it's Vu Lee.
Oh yeah, I love
Oh man, he's
My
awesome. he talked about how like you can scale your impact, you can double the services you're providing, and you have doubled your expense line, not your revenues. And I'm like, that's so messed up. So if you do a great job in a nonprofit, you have to double your
costs
donors.
just go up.
Yeah, that sucks. That's like a disincentive. Literally.
It is. And we tried really hard to like reject that thinking. So like
Sure.
we,
Yeah,
like-
you don't want to think like that.
Yeah,
but
like we tried really hard to achieve like higher growth, and we did. I mean, like the company's revenues went from like 150 to 600 to 12 to 24 to 24. Like we just doubled each year.
wow.
But I think to do that, we had to kind of suspend all the usual anxieties around like where's the grant money going to come from.
Yeah.
And I think that's what I would tell my team is like, let's think in a very diversified way about revenue, and if we got to hit these targets, like how else can we be making money? How else can we be earning money? I think that's where a lot of the solutions came from that were revenue generating.
Yeah.
Is we had to kind of get out of the nonprofit box a little bit because there is not the philanthropic capital. Like if we did substitute all of that, we would be 50% smaller, like hands down. So, but that's another tough, hard thing. So.
Fascinating. I didn't actually realize. So I mean, I knew you could do earned revenue. Like, I worked closely with YMCA's for years, but it's just fascinating to hear it from like a search firm that's a nonprofit.
Yeah.
I bet people love that when they hire you.
I think so. I mean, we're going through an interesting thing now where our costs are still so much lower than our for-profit competitors. And that works until like someone wants to restart a search, right? They're like, oh, like I'm not happy with these candidates, let's start over. And you're like, now I see why the other guy's fees are so high. It's like you start pricing in contingency.
Sure.
And you're like, well, like these dudes might just like kick it out another 3 months, so we might as well just bake that in because half the time they're not going to be happy with what you do. Like it works super well if everything goes right the first time. You start losing money as soon as
it happens again.
Yeah. So we're like working it all out. You know, we're figuring it out.
You're gonna figure it out.
Yeah, we will.
Or you're gonna get more expensive. I mean,
Bingo.
yeah, you're going to.
We have to.
Yeah. But then that sucks when you're mission driven.
I know, because you want to serve as many clients. You want the service to be accessible. And it's also great opportunities, right? Like when we get to fill a role, there's like a markedly higher chance that that role is going to be filled by a woman and or a person of color.
Wow.
And that's absolutely worth getting out of bed for.
Yeah.
You know, and going to work every day, but we're definitely getting more expensive.
But then at the end of the day, I bet you don't get thanked a lot.
No.
I'm gonna thank you.
Oh, thanks.
I'm like a huge fan.
Thanks. We're in the people business, and people are hard.
Yeah.
People are super hard. So that's all we deal with all day, like people and their stuff. And then us and our stuff. So it's
Yeah. So what advice would you give to someone just starting out in social impact who like wants to change the world in some way? Other than don't do it. Or how like to best do it from the lessons you've learned.
I think like know what your goal is.
Yeah.
Know why you're going into it and what it is that you want to achieve or what needs to be different. And try to stay as like proximate to that goal as you can. I think the social sector is a great place to like launch and have a career as long as it's very well calibrated to like what gets you out of bed in the morning. If you get out of alignment with that really important goal, it's very easy to get jaded or to be frustrated or resentful because you're like, wait a minute, I'm not really working on the thing that I want to work on. I'm not making as much money. This nonprofit can't manage their way out of a wet paper bag. I'm working way too many hours. Like, what the heck's going on here?
Right.
And then people get burned on the whole endeavor of trying to make the world a better place, and that's terrible.
Sure.
So I think just like stay really close to your goal.
I love that.
Yeah.
It's perfect. Well, thank you so much.
Yeah,
I
no
thought
worries.
this was so insightful.
And another big thanks to Fagan Harris for being an awesome guest. If this episode changed anything about your perspective or life in any way, we are collecting listener questions and insight to share on future episodes. So you can leave us a voicemail at 984-464-7264 0254, or you can record a voice memo on your phone. Or you can record a voice memo on your phone and email it to us at hello@wearethearcbenders.com.
Also, be sure to tune in next week. We have an incredible guest for you. Her name is Maggie Kane. She's the founder of A Place at the Table, a pay what you can cafe that in its first year has done extraordinary things and was even featured on the Today Show. You guys are going to absolutely love this interview. Maggie is such an inspiration.
And the music on this episode is by the one and only Ryan Levin. You know what? We did it. We showed up and we did it.
You know, even though I'm in a better mood now, which is good.
Good.
Thanks so much for tuning in. And don't forget, every little thing you can do to make a difference matters.